guys, and welcome back to another episode of the ADHDads. I'm your host, CJ, with the crazy intro voice always, and my host.
And I'm JJ.
There he is. And today we got a really special guest, man. I'm excited. We've been doing this dad den thing for a couple episodes now, JJ, and I really like talking with other dads, man. So tell us about yourself, Anthony. Welcome, brother. Introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Hey, CJ. Hey, JJ. Thank you for having me on. First of all, very honored to be on here. I've been listening to your guys' podcast for a while, as you know, just being a part of the alliance. And I was just telling you guys, like, I love just talking to you guys. I love the way you guys challenge me, all those different things. But for me in general, I'm a dad. I have a 2-year-old son. I coach baseball for a living. I own a business called Transcending Legacy Athletics, where I help people basically become their best selves in any aspect of their life through fitness. I took my passion for baseball and helping others into that avenue because helping others is one of the biggest things that draws to me the most. And yeah, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm 32. Love being a dad, so that's why I love and honored being on here to get to talk about that with you guys.
That's awesome, man. And what's your son's name?
Alika.
If you don't mind sharing. Alika? Oh man, that's
Yeah,
a cool name. I like that.
It means protector or guardian in Hawaiian.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool, man. And you're a single dad too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. So tell me, what does a day in the life or maybe a week in the life of single dad Anthony Mendoza look like?
You know, he's with me a lot of the time. Obviously, as a baseball coach, I have lessons throughout the day. I have practices. I have games. His mom is truly a blessing. Our relationship has improved over the 2.5 years of him being born, which has been amazing to see what that has turned to be especially from where it started and us really just trying to navigate co-parenting into that. So he's with me while she's at work all day, and because I do have that freedom to have him with me, and that's been amazing. And then around evening times, either she picks him up or I drop him off with her at work or whatever may be. Because he'll come with me, she'll pick him up at work. All those different kinds of things, which allows me different freedoms in the evenings to go to the gym, get some more work done, different things like that. And then either he's with me, and I'm in charge of him at night, or she is, and all those different kinds of things, just because of his age. So it's a constantly moving week.
Yeah. And what brought you to coaching, brother? I'm interested in that. What brought you into the baseball world and the coaching world?
So I played baseball all through my life growing up. Played Division II baseball. Was on the team there for 2 years, and then I was going to try to play here in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I moved to. And then just couldn't really do it anymore. Just didn't have the overall skill. Didn't have what it takes any longer. Then I got a job coaching at a university, and that was the real step into coaching that I had. I had coached youth teams as I was growing up, as coached my brother's teams, coached middle school teams as I was playing still. And I really fell in love with it when I got here and was coaching at the college level, was coaching at youth level as well. It spoke to me at a different level of what I truly wanted to have a greater impact on. And my faith is a big standing for who I am. And when I was a freshman in college, I had a vision, a prayer, something that came to me and showed me of me being in front of thousands of people after being at a baseball game. So I really didn't understand what that meant, whether I was supposed to play or whether I was supposed to coach, and because I was still playing at the time. So I really dug everything into coaching and kind of just went from there when I couldn't play anymore, and it stuck. The knowledge grew. I think my passion and my communication with the athletes, because I do work with more high school youth athletes now than higher levels of ages. And I think that was just the bigger part that I got drawn to.
That's awesome, man. What position did you play in baseball?
Shortstop. Probably should have been a second
Shortstop.
baseman. Probably would
Oh
have had
man.
better arm talent at second.
Yeah, I've been playing catcher since I was, doing t-ball, and I can't wait to get our little dude into some t-ball next summer. So he's like 3 right now. So I think like next year's the year, where I can like slap the oversized helmet on him and stick him in front of a, little pole to start swinging away out there. So I'm excited about that, man.
Oh man, I did coach 1 year at T-ball, and it is amazing just to like see them run around and fall in love with the game that way. You're gonna love it
Sometimes
for sure.
I can honestly go down a rabbit hole on YouTube of just watching kids t-ball games because they're just hilarious. Just watching these uncoordinated little kids run around.
And it's all havoc on the ball. Once it's in play, they just swarm it.
Yeah, how many videos have you seen of a kid running to third base first, and the parents going, no, and there's like 30 parents yelling at the one kid who's just like, I'm just having the time of my life. That's all that matters to me.
The run home ones where the kid like literally takes off the field and starts running home, things are funny. Like kids are funny.
So what's some things that you're kind of hoping to bring to your kid into your fatherhood experience here, man? What are some things that maybe your dad taught you, either intentionally or unintentionally, that you either hope to teach your son, either intentionally or unintentionally? What does that journey look like?
For me, man, it's a great question. Fatherhood, in terms of what I got from I think I parent more so in what I didn't learn rather than what I did learn. Um, and and this is part of my healing journey as well. I think the best way for me to say this, I didn't have a bad childhood, but my childhood for me was bad. And I don't want my son to grow up with any of the pains that I had. And I think that's one of the biggest things I'm trying to take out of my parenting to him is it's not that I'm not going to cause him any pain or be in the wrong place. It's my floor can't be his floor. There should be no reason the things that I went through are the same things that he's going through. And that's kind of my biggest struggle with my own healing journey and my family is I can see those different, it's the same thing. Like you're doing the same thing. You're complaining about the same thing I'm complaining about, but about your family. And for me, those things need to stop. Um, I heard it recently and I can't remember where it was, but I don't want my son to say dad used to. That's another thing as well. Like it's never going to be dad used to do this. It's going to be dad, this is just who dad was from the second he knew me.
Hmm. JJ and I did a interesting exercise today, kind of going through, like you're at your funeral and, all your peers and your wife and loved ones and kids are kind of coming up, and what would they say? It's kind of like this visual exercise. And, as we're kind of walking through that, one of the things that emerged for me that kind of really kind of brought up some emotions in me and kind of teared me up a little bit is when I pictured the kids speaking about me in that meditation, in that exercise. One of the things that I heard them say was, my dad wasn't perfect, but he always tried to be better. And I hope that I can instill that, at least in them. And I think that as parents, we're probably, even with all the best intentions, there's probably going to be something that our kids feel like they were robbed on, missed out on, or that we didn't do enough of, or that we weren't good at. Right. And we're going to have to come to terms with that and, humble ourselves with that. And, and I think it's also the journey of our kids to, at least it's been my journey and my experience with my dad, and kind of the same attitude of you, brother, of, I lived a lot of my life saying like, well, my dad did this, so I'm going to do the opposite. Or, my dad did it this way, I'm going to not do it that way. And I I guess the further I get on this parenting journey, the more I realize, like, oh shoot, I think my dad did do those things that I thought that he wasn't doing, or that, like, but maybe just not in the way or the words, or, we weren't speaking the same language. He was speaking Gen, X, or, he was speaking, what's the term? The nuke babies, the
Baby
boomer
boomer.
babies, boomers. He was speaking boomer and I was speaking millennials. And we just couldn't link up on that. But I hope that my ultimate goal as a parent is maybe I can close the gap on that in my relationship with my kids. Is maybe it won't take them until their mid-30s to be like, my dad maybe wasn't so bad. Maybe it'll be, hopefully in their, early 20s. I know that there'll probably be a viva la resistance during the late teenage years that I'm preparing myself for, but no, I think all of us can really kind of relate to that, brother. And I know that I definitely can, with my relationship with my father, that we still work on in our way and at our slow snail's pace,
Yeah. And it's interesting to have those generational differences and stuff, and trying to be, in a state of grace toward it, but also realizing that, trauma is a real thing and it can affect how somebody shows up for the next generation. But at some point we have to take ownership of that, right? We do need to say, okay, this is now how I am taking what I learned or what I have, been practicing for so long, and it's causing some pain, it's causing some hurt. And the thing I would like to challenge more of our intergenerational, relationships is to not just let that be. And it seems so hard for a lot of us, to talk to our parents about those things, and instead of just letting it be and saying, well, they did the best they could with what they had, which to me is a very, dare I suggest, ignorant statement sometimes. When we say that, we're basically giving something a pass. And I am not suggesting by saying this that, going at your parents and saying, hey, you really screwed me up. Or just simply saying, this is something that's caused me harm, and leave it at that with them. Instead, coming to them and suggesting, hey, here's some things that I really struggled with in our relationship. And to this day, I still don't really understand everything. I want to let you know that has hurt me and has affected me over the years. And I want to have a conversation about that, because this is where we get to the healing process. That's a difficult thing for a lot of us. And I'm telling you that, guys, because I know I haven't gotten there yet myself. And I continue to wonder what's going to be the magic pill to make that all work. But it's true. Like I said, I love my parents, and I know they love me. And they're generous people. Their values look a little different than my values as I see them right now, and how I communicate to my kid. Like you were saying, Anthony, there's some things that you realize you want to do different because of what you had when you were growing up. That's definitely something that I feel too. Some of my core values are like quality time and being present, and empathy is a huge one for me. Validation, a huge one for me. Those are things that I always felt like my parents had a hard time trying to do toward me. And I know, Anthony, I've shared a resource with you recently about how do we work through that stuff. I know that's a lot to be just throwing at you in my piece here after what Colton just said, but I don't know, what are some of your thoughts on that?
No, so I heard a lot of great things from both of you, and I'm gonna start with Colton really quick because it's less fresh on my mind. So what you were saying about, like, feeling you were one second, I was losing it, and this is why I have to write things down a lot. Um, but you were talking about feeling that gap, right? And that's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to do. Like, that really spoke to me, because when my son comes to me and tells me, and that's where I'm struggling, and this is where it connects with JJ too. It's for me right now, a lot of my biggest issues with my family is it's at that point where, for me, I'm going to them and saying, here's where the problem is. I'm implementing, like, this is where you hurt me. And I used to do it in very bad ways. And I understand that. And I take full ownership, at least for my situation, that in these moments, I know my family struggles because they still think it's who I used to be, and it's not. I'm coming from a completely different place with the same story. You know what I mean? Um, but for me, like I know I'm gonna have those pains where I bring my son pains, but I don't want him to come to me as a father who has a 1 year old and say, "Hey, this is how you hurt me and you're continuing to do it." Where I go, "Well, that's just who I am." Or I don't make that step in that moment. I understand there's probably things I'm still doing wrong and I'm always going to do wrong. I don't want to be that person, like you were saying, also progress over perfection. I want to be able to be 60 years old and my son say, "Hey, this is something you do." And for me to be able to be like, "Yeah, I can't, I need to stop that." Like, and how do I make that step? And it I think connects to JJ's point as well, is like, I think my family struggles with that, the older generation struggles with that. And I've been sitting on this too, because this is a lot fresh of things that are going on. Like, I'm not that at point with my family. Like, when does that trigger flick for them? The love languages thing for me, I think, is a huge thing. And it's something that I continue to try to remember, but also neglect when I'm upset with my family, is they do show that love but it's in a different way. And I think that's where I also want to show to my son is like, and I think that's why my coaching is as good as it is I understand how to communicate to you in your love language. I also put that expectation on others though, and that's the hard part that I struggle with, because I can do that. I struggle with, hey, you should be able to speak to me in mine as well. If it's that type of relationship, you know.
I can really appreciate that, brother, and man, I can really feel that too. And you know what helped me with that was spending more time around kids. I'll tell you, because the more time I spent around kids, I realized like you can't get mad at them; they don't know anything, right? Like they're so brand new, like they don't know all of the like self help, like emotional regulation tools and aggravating de escalation, right? They've never been taught that. And then I started realizing when I would get frustrated with peers or coworkers, holy shit, they're just fucking children in the same aspect. Like, right? Like, we have never been taught this. Well, they don't know any better. I didn't know any better, you know, and I get caught in the same dichotomy with my own relationship with my father. You know, sometimes I'm totally fine with it, and I've just learned to like, whatever. He is who he is. He ain't changing. He's told me a million times he ain't changing. You know, he's too old for it. You know, and sometimes I'm fine with that, and sometimes, man, does that drive me crazy. You know, especially being a life coach and changing who I was essentially from this, you know, addict, you know, and self-absorbed egomaniac that that operated in these subconscious toxic manipulative ways in my last marriage that I wasn't even able to see. And learning all of the stuff and changing the way that I operate and that I behave and seeing the way that it's impacted my life and wanting my dad to take those same steps so that our relationship can be impacted in the same ways that I've seen it can be maddening at times, you know? But also, you know, so I guess it's my journey in life too. And to be accepting of that, you know, that my dad is just one of the idiots that's like the rest of us that has never been taught any of this shit, you know? And I could try to chip away at it with conversations and patience, most time unsuccessful. I'll give it to you there. But, you know, there's some little splinters that pop up every now and then that I think, oh man, right. You know, okay, he's got it. He is willing to change. Now, is he willing to, you know, go left wing and vote Democrat and go to a Black Lives Matters rally? I don't know. You know, we can get there. Like we can
Might
get
be a
there
few
and
steps
conversationally, you know.
I really appreciate what you said there, CJ, about the kids don't know better, and I guess that the thing that I see different from the generation before us and our generation, at least us men, dads trying to put in the work and effort to understand our kids, is that's that big component there, is trying to understand, when we can take a breath and step back and say, okay, kiddo's acting a little bit emotional here, and instead of like what I experienced growing up with parents basically telling me this is what you need to do and stop crying, or crying doesn't help and stuff, is I'm saying, okay, kiddo's crying, and I don't do this perfectly, guys, I always gotta put that little asterisk in there. Kiddo's crying, he's feeling something, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in his brain. I'm not gonna discredit any of that. I need to be curious about that. I need to show this understanding and to validate, because when your kiddo's crying, they're not crying because they just lost it and they've gone off the deep end. No, they're crying because they felt something. And when I see that, some people just saying, stop crying, you're acting like a baby, it's missing the point of connection that we now as men who are desperately trying to understand the people that we have relationship with, we're trying to understand our kiddos as well. And that's something that I believe that I missed out a lot. The idea was basically drilled into my head, like, you need to follow this rule, you need to do this, and the emotional response I had to that was not welcome. So what do you do when, we say, our kids don't know better? What is that next step for us?
I think we have to model it. For me, when you were talking about all that, it spoke to me something that I've been going through. My son's 2.5, so one, he's a toddler dealing with new emotions. He's learning anger, he's learning sadness, all those different kinds of things. I'm hard on him. Me and him have a very strong bond, but I am hard on him. Once he expects something out, once he shows me something, I do start to expect that out of him a lot more. And that hardness is starting to show out of the way he's acting. And with him learning those certain emotions, I can see where, like, I'm taking the fault in those moments and seeing, like, oh crap, like that response might not be exactly the way I do it, but that's my response. And for me, it's being able to see that or listen to it. Like I said too earlier, if our kid comes to us and we're 67 years old, um, start to show it better and example it better. And I think that's the only way we can expect something different from our kids and show them there is that difference in how they handle it.
Can I share a win with you guys that I had the other night? Because we've been dealing with this bedtime routine. I've been talking to you, JJ, about all the renovations going on in here, on our first floor. So we're basically confined to a studio apartment on our second floor. It's just bedrooms and that's it. And the kids are always in our bedrooms. And, getting them to get in their bedrooms and go to sleep has been a chore, especially since these renovations started. And it's just gotten worse over the last 5 weeks. And our youngest has been in a habit of coming in and saying, I'm scared, I'm too scared, I can't go to bed, or it's boring, or it's too hot. There's always a reason. And it was, I'm too scared, the other night, even though sissies are sleeping on his bed with him in the room, lights are on, doors open, he's too scared. And it was like, it's gotten to a point where, like, this kid is staying up past me. It's 10, 11 at night. I'm trying to go to bed. This kid won't go to sleep. And he keeps waking us up.
Brother. I've been there too many times.
We have to be up at 5, child. I need at least 7 hours, And he just kept coming in, and I just like could feel my blood boiling, like I wanted to just like, no, go in there and you stay in there. Like I wanted to do that. I felt that. And, I know that, again, these are the moments, Anthony, that I'm talking about is the further I go on in life, I see like, oh, my dad did yell, and he did throw you in there and close the door and, lock it. And you just sat there and cried in the dark, just scared, just fearful of what was out there, and you learned a lesson. Dad is not going to help you with your fear, like, and I feel that emotion, and I think I can kind of relate to what Dad was feeling. Now, do I think that, his choice versus mine, one is better than the other? I'm not going to get into that, but I try to have more presence about it. And while this thing was going on, I just grabbed a thing of disinfecting spray, and I went over to the door. I said, fine, I'll spray the monster spray, and then they won't be able to come in here. So I sprayed it all over the door, and I went over to the windows, and he said, spray there too. So I sprayed the windows, and I sprayed his bed. I said, okay, the monsters can't come in here now. It's anti-monster spray, and now the kid, the last 2 nights has come in, and all he asked for is, can you spray the monster spray? And I go in there and I just spray the little disinfecting spray, and he fucking goes to bed, man, So it's like, I think we're just presented with all of these choices as parents, of like to like give in to these emotions and just like operate off of instinct, or like be the example, and find a creative way to handle these solutions. And sometimes it's just as simple as grabbing a bottle of disinfectant spray and pretending it's anti-monster spray, and sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes you do pull your hair out and, slam the door and turn off the light, and your kid cries, and then you feel awful, and then, you traumatize them. They grow up hating you for the next 20 years because of that one night. I don't know,
I've brought that up to his mom. Like our son is he's a good kid, and he handles a schedule that is with me a lot very well. And it's like those little things. Like there has to be something, whether it be parenting, whether it be something they eat, whether it be something that was told to them when they're an infant, I don't know, that triggers all these different things. And is it one moment? Is it, we really won't know, because it's so hard to study that many infants and that many moments that is 24/7 of their life. Could one moment cause that pain? Because that's something I struggle with too, in terms of that aspect of, I've had a couple blow ups around my son that caused me to really want to put in deeper work into myself and healing myself, and saying, hey, this is a problem. Like my son can't see this anger or whatever it may be I'm going through. Is it just a one moment thing? And I know you said that in a jokingly way, but even the good things, like, is it so many different things that we go through as parents raising children, whether good or bad, that if we do something in a moment, we impact them for so much longer, good or bad,
Well, brother, I've had this has come up multiple times in my relationship with my dad, where, I'll finally have the courage to bring up some traumatic memory that I have, or something that affected me in a way that I've carried with me for a long time and thought about, right? And I'll say to my dad, God, remember when you did this, or, remember when this happened and this played out this way and you said this thing, and man, that just really hurt, and I carried it with me, or, and I try to open up about that. I've been met with a lot of times in those conversations where my dad goes, I don't even remember that, that happened, or he sees it completely different. And then vice versa. There's also been a lot of times where my dad may get caught up in an emotional moment where he gets all teary-eyed thinking about the good old days or something that we've done in the past. And God, Colton, you remember that one time that we went out there and we did this one thing and you said this, and oh man, I thought about this the whole time. And I'll sit there and go, I don't even remember that. So I think it's a double-edged sword, brother. You know,
Right.
that we may have those moments that may impact our kids, and then we may let some slip through our fingers that we don't even realize that affects them in ways that never even crossed our radar. You know, and that's why I think like the accountability aspect is like really important for me. Apologizing. I apologize a lot as a dad. You know, and I just really try to have good conversations based around that, you know, and sometimes it goes good and sometimes it doesn't, you know, and like, I mean, this was just, again, point in case, you know, a couple weeks ago, again, with the renovations, you know, emotions have been on eggshells with all of us, you know, literally, because there's no floor to walk on. It's sticky glue floor, and it's hard to get around. We have a little 6-inch path that we can walk through the house to get in and out, and you know, so it's just been. I had a morning where I was just, you know, couldn't find the keys, couldn't find the wallet. I was looking for stuff, and I wasn't yelling at anybody in particular, but I was just kind of, you know, Yosemite Salmon it, just freaking, you know, and my wife, you know, tried to calm me down, but I was just kind of in my little rampage looking for my sock or whatever it was, you know, and afterwards, you know, when I came home from dropping the kids off, you know, my wife said, you know, the girls, I think, were really kind of scared by the way that you were acting, you know, and I think that you should say something to them tomorrow when you take them to school, you know. And I said, oh shit, you know, like, oh man, I felt bad all day. I was beating myself up, you know, and I think about what I was going to say to them all day. And the next morning on our car ride, I said, you know, Mama said that, you know, you guys told her that you were a little scared, and you know, the way that I was, you know, the tone of voice I was using, and I'm sorry, you know, it wasn't about you, and, you know, but it's still not right. I shouldn't react that way. I'm always trying to tell you guys to watch your tone of voice. And here I am. I just let into my feelings and having all this accountability. And, you know, the girls look at me and go, you were angry? I didn't even notice. Huh.
You touched on a couple things there, buddy, that I think's key to us. You know, again, I don't want to just say dads, but I definitely think this is key to us, and, you know, overcoming like this whole conversation about the trauma, the things that we experience. You know, one thing that I did not learn growing up in the house was an effective apology. I didn't learn to apologize in my home at all. And when you can show true remorse for something that you did that may or may not have affected them, either way, the other part of that, the other big component that our kids are hoping and praying for, or just hoping for, is consistency from us. Mm-hmm. So those two things go hand in hand. Let's say you do act out of line one day. My dad's consistent enough to remind himself, hey, I got out of line, or somebody told me that I was out of line, and I was welcoming to that feedback, and I was able to walk through that situation, find the remorse within, and not just keep it within, but actually reach out and show my true remorse by asking for forgiveness. Those are the key components, I think, that help our kids feel safe and secure with us, because we are going to blow up sometimes, because we all have our own brain and our own thoughts. Nature's flying at us in every direction, and we're trying to handle that crap, and thoughts come up, feelings come up, and then we have to deal with it in the moment. We're not always going to be on our best, but the consistency piece still can be there. When you come back to it and you say, hey, Dad was kind of an asshole, wasn't he? I think I should apologize to you. That was not okay. Those things, those two things, I think us men, if we narrow that, or if we nail that down, our kids are going to feel safe. Even when they know, hey, Dad's being a little bit nuts. Or the next day, oh, you were a little bit nuts there. Hey, thanks for the apology. Dad cares about our well-being.
No, I totally hear you on that, because I might not have realized it before you said it, but I don't think I was ever taught to apologize either. And I think I still struggle with that, and that's probably a big part of where our disconnection still is, because I think I land there. I end very badly when I'm angry, and especially when it comes to them. But that consistency part is so huge, and I think that plays into like so much of what we were talking about, and like leading by example and all those things of like whatever it may be, just continue to show up consistently, especially if it's the positive that we're trying to make as fathers. Um, Consistency in showing up on our calls, consistency having these conversations. Like I said, like I love talking to you guys because you challenge me in the ways I need to be challenged. Consistency in the presence, consistency in the bond that I have with him. All those things you have to show up for every day, and that's kind of how I live my life right now.
Something that we do in our house is we have a screen board, and we have each one of our names there, and whenever somebody gets too yelly, they get a little tally mark on this board, and it's just such a great thing to just have in the open and walk by every day, and we reset it every 28 days, and just to see, if you've got 15 tallies on there that month, you're thinking to yourself, oh shit, I better work on that. Something ain't right here. I better level out here, and for me, I need that accountability. I need that like daily reminder, because if not, then I do fall into well, it's just me, well, I'm just angry. I just be angry, but when I see that, it's like, oh shit, like you can be angry, but maybe to just not be so loud about it.
And that accountability piece applies to the parents too. So you have a whole family unit, working toward this goal, which I think is brilliant. You are accountable to the kids are accountable to you. You're all setting an example for each other.
Brother, every time my name gets mentioned that I have to put a tally on there, I want to bite my tongue until I bleed, okay? It hurts my soul as a man, as a human with an ego. I don't want to put that tally under my name, But every time I do, I feel like I'm setting an example of good accountability for the kids, and they're able to put a tally under their name a little bit more easily next time too, and recognize those moments. The more that I'm able to be like, well, shucks, knucklehead Pollock stepdad did it again, the more that they can be like, oh, okay, well, we're learning here. It's okay to fail, and it's okay, but we're learning, and that's the important thing. Back to like what I was saying earlier about that eulogy exercise, it hit me hard to, I don't want to be the perfect dad, but I definitely want to be remembered as someone that tried to learn from the failures, that tried to get up after the things knocked me down, and to not let the obstacles hold me back, and to not bulldoze them, but to learn how to go over them, under them, around them, and through them.
And I don't want to let this pass. I want to take, a special focus on this part where maybe reframe it a little bit of what you said there. You said you almost bite your tongue when you see those tally marks. That's the sign of that other piece coming later, is the remorse. Somebody who wants to improve and is willing to put himself out there and be called out on it. Like that's setting a great example for the family, for yourself, for the kids. So I wanted to acknowledge that. That's a great thing, a great example to highlight.
Yeah, 1000%.
And
Like
Anthony,
you said, sorry,
Yeah,
you
go
said,
ahead.
you brought up failure and accountability and all that. Like that all goes so well and so strong into leading by example. Because one of the things I like to say, especially to my athletes, is fail forward. Like you have to fail forward. You're gonna fail. Life is failure, and that's I think that's why life is how I coach baseball a lot, because baseball is a game of failure. Parenting's failure. It's this book we have of nothing. It's you're writing the next chapter every time. Every day your oldest child is a new day old. Like you've never lived that day before in your life when your oldest child turns that age. And even when your youngest child, you've never done it before with that many kids or the aspect of the life you're living in that moment. You're going to have to continually fail forward and own it, and own that, hey, I just made that fall, but also see it and see why you did it. And that's the accountability part of like, oh crap, this is what I did. Let me hold myself accountable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I yelled because whatever it may be. I'm still connected at work in my mind, and I didn't take that time to separate, or whatever it may be. As it's holding ourselves accountable in those moments, and failing forward, and making that stand up the next day or the next moment, and being a little bit better.
So, what are the things that you hope to teach your son to be better than what you're currently doing? Or some of the ways that maybe you are lacking that you hope to fill those gaps in with your son?
The anger part, I'm still dealing with the biggest part, and that's what I was talking about, is I can see it in him sometimes, especially when he gets mad. He gets a little loud. So that tally part, especially when he can understand what that is, might have to come in play, but hopefully I can stop that, because I have been a little bit better at it, of just when he's in the moment or I'm angry, of just like showing him I'm trying to take a deep breath. Um, but I want him to have my ceiling. I think that's the biggest thing I want. My ceiling needs to be his floor. I want him to do everything better, and that's the hard cliche thing to say, but it's through the leading by example. It's through the constant learning. I want him to not have to learn these tools like I'm learning them. I want him to have them mastered. I want him to understand the communication aspect that we're all learning, and the empathy and all the skills that we continue to learn, through the Dad Edge, or through our own readings of. I, I think that's just the biggest I hope that I can have, is the best way for me to put it, is that everything that is my ceiling, whether it be I die, him being 18 and leaves, that he picks up where I literally left off, not further back because I didn't teach him those skills or I didn't show him those skills. Uh, that's why I love having him around me, as much as I do. It's hard having him around as much as he is, but the things I get to instill in him, and get to show him, and then I get to see him start to do on his own, that is me leading, and I can see it, are the things that I hope to teach, if that makes any sense.
I have a follow up question. And I know your son is only 2, but I'm curious what would conversations look like between you and him to convey that? And I ask because I'm selfishly am thinking about my own relationship with my own father, and my dad had a very pessimistic view on life. You know, life happens to you, and you don't have a lot of control over it. It doesn't happen for you, and I don't think that he necessarily maybe understood that the control in life was maybe over our own domain and how we react to the things that are happening to us, or for us, not to us. And sometimes I think about, especially like with this journey of the podcast and in interviewing, great men like you, and hearing your story, and hearing different ways of parenting. And, sometimes my dad or that generation may suggest things that I don't agree with, or that I try to parent differently from. And I try to maybe bring up those conversations, or talk about maybe some of the things that, like we we're talking about the ceiling being the floor, and like maybe filling in those gaps or some of those things. And whenever I maybe try to bridge some of those conversations or gaps, I feel like it's maybe taken as an defense or as a slight towards that person. Right. And maybe that goes back to the accountability stuff we're talking about. Maybe it goes back to the story that maybe I'm telling myself. Maybe it has nothing to even do with my own dad. But I'm just curious, and what my own conversations would look like with my own kids of, I want you to do better than me, and I want to tell you everything that, I have to give so that you can be more and better and grow from the foundation that I hopefully lay for you to stand up on and raise up on. So I don't know. If you're able to think about that, what would that look like?
I would hope it would look very transparent. I parent a lot. I think I parent a lot the way I coach. And not because I do that intentionally. I've recently just seen things that connect in that aspect, and I tell athletes this all the time. If your coach doesn't have an answer of why you're doing something, they don't know why you're doing it. You should go find another coach. And I would hope that conversation would kind of be that same transparent aspect of him telling me, like, this is what was missing, or this was what it may be. And I think that's the same disconnect I have with my family, is there is no true why something happened. It was like JJ was saying, it was because I told you so. Like that doesn't do enough for me. And right now I write letters more to my family, because I communicate a lot better in that tone through letter. If I'm doing it in this verbally, they seem to think I'm just constantly angry, and I can get it, especially with who I used to be. So with my son, I would just hope it be transparent and him be able to tell me what went wrong, but also me be able to show him my side, like you're saying, like, this is your dad may have had certain tools, or I know we talked about this too, in the group, that like maybe that was all they had to give in a moment. Um, it can't just be that because I'm your father and I told you so. That's something I don't want to ever tell my son. I want to be able to give him a reason, whether it hurt him or I thought it was the right choice or whatever it may be. But I also want to be able to hear his pain or his happiness or whatever it may be he's coming to me with, um, and him have a real understanding of how it affected him or needs to be affecting him, if that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean that's a big question to answer, and that's one that I probably wouldn't be able to successfully answer for some time still, because the growth journey is still taking place for myself. But I appreciate what you said, Anthony, and I have a very lengthy follow up, which will include some of my story as well. But I think the thing that stood out to me in that was that people are placed in front of us, and that can result in many directions that we choose to take. And one of the things that I heard recently that I really appreciated is growth is an opportunity for us to reflect on ourselves, and true growth is shown through not judging somebody else because they didn't meet us at our area of growth. Um, and that's an internal process that I think that a true growth comes from, is really focusing in on the self and then using that self to be the example. One of the things that unfortunately, in my experience in life, I failed at was my marriage. And I know you're a single father, you're a co-parent, so we have some shared experience. And with the trauma of my past and trying to understand how to show up in a different way, started to come into play in my marriage. I really realized just how different it can really look through my ex-wife. Her family, when I went to visit them with her, it was like a whole different world for me. Like, I saw her mom and her dad talking to their kids, and their kids would say, well, no, that's not it, or that's not true. And the parents wouldn't become defensive. Their kids could teach their parents something, and that was embraced. That was welcome. So that was a two-way street. It wasn't, parent tells you this is the way it is, my way or the highway. It was very much like, yes, we are here to grow this family through each other. And that it blew my mind. I was sitting back thinking, like, I never had this. I love this. I want to watch it. I want to witness more. But I, of course, also came into this marriage with her still stuck in that kind of mentality of, I always have a reason for why I'm acting this way, why I'm upset. No, I have this figured out. The protagonist in my head is telling the truth. Your truth is off. That was what I brought to it. And it was hard to marry the two for a long term. And I unfortunately brought out the worst of myself and my past to that marriage. Now, if I were to kind of continue on along that continuum of my relationship with my now ex, was I got to continue to grow and learn through her the empathy that she had with her family, the empathy that they shared with each other, and how she extended that to our son. And then I got to see myself kind of embrace that more and evolve my character in being curious about that and trying to figure out what is it about this two-way exchange that is really impacting both of us in a positive way. So I started to see this change in myself as I became more curious to the relationships that I was in and the relationships that I unfortunately damaged along the way to become the better person I am today. And I will tell you this much, like, I am a very large factor of why my marriage failed. I take full ownership of it, and anything that she did, I don't have to hold her to that because I'm at this place of growth. I want to serve her today because I serve my son. So I serve her through serving my son, and I am grateful for that. So even though we struggled through some very difficult points in life and our co-parenting is now what it is because our marriage failed, she is a blessing upon my life because I took all the good that we had together and I celebrate that now with our son and with where we can go with this thing. So the growth happened within me because I finally allowed for it and pushed some of that other crap a little bit further along in the distance. You know, that anchor wasn't an anchor at all. It was just a little bit of a rope that I needed to kind of loosen up and just let it go. I could float away from it. It's cool. And it doesn't mean that I've forgotten my past, but it does mean that I'm very happy for the growth that I've, achieved through the process of learning about myself better and what I was capable of through my failures with my marriage. The unfortunate thing is there was a lot of hurt along the way, but I don't let that continue to be the story today. So I don't know. I mean, that was I don't know if that was even a question, but is that something maybe that you've experienced through your co-parenting? You said that you have a great co-parenting relationship, man. I'd love to hear about that, how your growth has come to this point today where you can actually say, this is my most effective, best self with my kiddo and, the other people involved in my life.
You know, I'm at like different points of that with so many different relationships. It's kind of like they're all working through different mountains of their own. Co-parenting wise, and it kind of connects, man. I think this is why I was so this anyone who listens to this is not gonna understand this portion, but you guys do. When Andrew brought up the I quit thing, and I said it affected me, like when he said that, like that one got me a little bit. I've been sitting on that for since that moment, and so like that relationship has gotten stronger from that moment because of I didn't like the way that made me feel because I knew I was the one that quit in that relationship. Um, and it came, and I really think it came from my family. The only successful relationships that came from my family were co-parenting relationships. Like it never succeeded when they were together. And one of the greatest relationships that I saw was my godmother and her ex-husband, who I didn't know weren't married anymore until I was like a teenager, and they were divorced like the whole time I was alive. Like they showed up to everything together. It was all for the kids. Like that was the example that I had of like really true good parenting in my eyes because I only saw them for events anyway. So, that's I saw the good parts. But they still showed up together. And when I found out that they were divorced and like all that spoke further than I ever thought it did when I got into adulthood, I realized that. Um, but realizing, like you were saying, JJ, the things that I've done, the things that I brought in from my past in certain moments, or just had a wall that such and such relationship had nothing to do with, that whether I hurt that relationship because of that wall or something, whatever it may be, because of a past hurt, or that relationship with my co-parent has gotten stronger because I've been able to let that down, at least in that moment or in these moments lately, of owning and having that accountability of being shut off, I guess, at least in that that's personal, obviously, is like I was so shut off. Um, So like I'm still at a limbo of where all that is because all that obviously is fresh from conversations. Um, but with my family, I'm trying. I know we've talked about it in terms of like what's that line, but I know, and Colton, things you've brought up today too, brought about it, like the actions I'm taking with my family are gonna affect him. If it all stands at what it is right now, at the end of the day, I made that choice. And if he comes and asks me a question 30 years, like, hey, where are my grandparents or my great grandparents? That's on me. Like, so it's a very Rocky Mountain thin line thing for me of letting those pains go, owning the accountability and my part in it. It's I think it's just a constant growth thing, especially I know we didn't actually talk about it, but like having goals was a big I feel like a portion of this call too. If we're all working towards the same type of goal, it makes things easier. And even within ourself, like if my common goal is to betterment, which it is, and I think that's my biggest struggle with this topic, is my common goal right now is everything is for the betterment of my son, everything. And my family's trauma or drama that causes trauma is not for the betterment of my son, and but there's a future with them that is far more beautiful than without them. And I have to sit, and try to deal with that line of where it is to hold that accountability, to let them in, and but also see the things that I've done which cause the pains that they have as well.
So
Yeah,
you
we
know
can.
it's like finding your ongoing purpose, right? And you mentioned coaching, and a coach needs to see something and understand it to be able to explain it. So you're a coach of yourself and you're a coach of your son in a way.
Yeah. I know I said it earlier, but like a lot of the way I raise him is I coach myself, I coach him. It's the constant like give and take of you have to give something, but you'll also get something in return, and give a little bit and get it back. And if you just continue to push through that wall, continue to push through something that's unfamiliar, it'll get more comfortable, it'll get better. And I think that's like I want to have that transparency, like Colton's question brought up earlier with my son, and I'm trying to instill that in now because I see that anger that he has. Like I get to him a little these last few weeks and try to tell him like, hey, this is why I'm upset, and like I'm trying to build that, and it'll get more comfortable for me because it's still not like I still don't do it with my family, because that's new to me of like actually in the moment or right after the moment having that full accountability rather than 6 months later like I do with my family sometimes.
The things that I'm kind of picking up listening to you guys here is like, we we can't control other people, right? We can't control other people's behaviors as much as we would like to teach, to instill and get them to react in ways that please us or that we need or want. It's never going to happen, right? And the only way to truly do that is to, like you say, lead by example, to live it daily in your life, and hopefully it catches on. And if not, maybe we do have to have the stability and self-awareness to keep moving, even if somebody may get left behind, you know, somebody that may be weighing us down or dragging us down. And that's never an easy conclusion to come to, right? Like, especially when it's someone like our family that we have a mixed bag of feelings of love and trauma, you know? Um, but how I try to heal my relationships that I feel have trauma is just leading leading the way that I want to be loved, saying the things that I wish were said to me, even if I don't necessarily get to hear them or hear them as often as I'd like to. I hope by leading through that, exemplifying that, maybe the kids will pick up on that and see my efforts in whatever way they interpret it. And they can maybe exemplify it or fill in the gaps like we talk about, the next time we go around. But I think that we waste so much time trying to change the other person, change the set of circumstances, change the relationship itself rather than changing the relationship with ourselves. And that's really the best lesson that I've learned throughout this, is that I think all the other things will fall in place, all the other relationships and the trauma, if we can just learn to stay in the lane and stay focused towards, like you said, the goal, which is to be better, to close the gap, and to lead by example.
I think that was a mic drop moment there.
No, my headset and my microphone are just dying. But no, I appreciate this conversation, gentlemen. I thought that this was really good stuff, and really appreciate you coming on here and talking shop with us, Anthony. I could do this for hours, but my kids are already an hour past their bedtime. So I don't even, the wife isn't here and the kids are downstairs by themselves for the last hour. We just went grocery shopping. So I know that half the pantry is going to be demolished. There's going to be chocolate and marshmallow fluff everywhere. I'm kind of scared to end this call, but also feel like I need to.
No, man, Anthony, it's been fantastic, man. And I think I've told you this a couple of times, but there's been conversations where I've been thinking about you and wanting to share and talk to you about some of the things that I heard, and because the way you speak to life and your experience is something that resonates with me. So I hope we can do this again in the future and have another conversation with you, because I think there's so much more to dive into. But either way, appreciate your time.
Same here, brother. Same here.
No, thank you guys so much for having me on. Like I said, there was a few moments I was like, I might not have realized that till right now. Like I said, talking to you guys on weekly in the DEA, sometimes twice weekly if I'm able to jump on. It challenged me. It makes me a better dad for sure. It's definitely made me a better son, better grandson, whether I'm talking to them or not. The way you guys think, the way you guys challenge all of us that you do talk to. This podcast that you guys are doing is amazing. And Colton, I totally get it, man. The night owl thing. My son went to bed 5 minutes before we got on here, and it was 10 p.m. Eastern time. So I totally get him being up and us having to be up early. So I'll let you get going too. Thank you guys for having me on again.
Well, you sell Monster Spray, so it comes in a regular old disinfecting bottle, but costs 3 times as much. You can find that on the ADHDads Monster Spray, guys. Patent it.
As long as it ships from Utah, not.
Well, brother, is there somewhere that our listeners can maybe find you or reach out to you if they want to maybe get some of your coaching or some of your goods or just some more of your wonderful insight?
Yeah, my Instagram is a great place to find me. AM Baseball, Anthony Mendoza Baseball is what it stands for. I have a private Facebook group, which you can find on my Instagram as well, but that's where I share a lot of just mindset, health and fitness stuff. It's just a community that we've built together that is just trying to grow together, kind of like what you guys have as well.
Awesome, man. Well, not to worry, guys. We'll put that in the show notes for you. And thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on and talking with us. I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you tune in next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share and all that jazz. We really do appreciate your support always, and hope to see this thing grow, and hope to hear from you guys, because that's really why we're doing this, is to engage with you and to hear your story. So don't be shy. Hit us up. Check us out at the ADHDads.com, and we'll see you next week. Until then, I'm your host, CJ.
And I'm JJ, and I don't have to clean up a pantry tonight.
And thank you, Anthony Mendoza. We'll talk soon. All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you, gentlemen.